What's going on, everybody? I'm Johnny Brooke from Crafted Workshop. Welcome back to episode number 49 of the Crafted Podcast. Podcast all about making stuff by hand, woodworking, metalworking, leather, electronics, and more. We put out new episodes every Thursday on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, pretty much everywhere podcasts are available. We also live stream on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. You can check us out on our YouTube channel. Just search for Crafted Podcast over there. And you can watch the live stream, also kind of ask us questions live. That's a great way to get your questions answered. We also put out show notes every week for every episode. That's on craftedpodcast.com. You can see all the past show notes and links to kind of the stuff we're talking about during the show. We're also on Patreon. We've added a $250 goal for a weekend show, and are slowly creeping up on that. So that's patreon.com/craftedpodcast. We've got a weekly after show over there. And the top patrons this week are Make, Build, Modify, Master of None, and Debbie Brooke. And our new patron this week is David Prevost. So let me go ahead and introduce my co-hosts as always. I've got James Wright from Wood by Wright. What's going on, James?
I'm doing so good. Thank you.
And I've got Zack Herberholz from ZH Fabrications. What's going on, Zack?
How's it going?
Good, man. Good. So yeah, we're rolling on the fly this week. We've got no topic, so we're going to lean on the live chat.
Show topic.
Yeah, so we're going to lean on the live chat, get some live Q&As going, and I actually think these sometimes work out pretty well. So I guess, first of all, let's kick it off with what we've been working on. Zack, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so it's I guess I say it's always, every week I say it's been a crazy week, but this is another one, just trying to play catch up. I have a lot of projects that are coming in, and I'm just trying to get them knocked out while keeping my sanity in a tiny shop. So right now I'm doing those industrial shelves. I have a few pictures up on my Instagram of that. The shelf, it's made out of like C-channel and 1-inch all thread that's 6 feet tall and I don't know, whatever 70 inches wide is. And the way it works, so if you see the picture, like it's C-channel, and it's kind of like a C on its side, but a hard C with 90-degree angles. And then the threaded rod goes up through that, and then the shelves are going to be held in place by nuts and washers, which are just like 2x12s. But assembling that and disassembling that are going, it's crazy because you have to do everything from one side. So that means you need, just to assemble the thing, you need 12 feet of floor space, because the rod has to go in through one side, and you have to spin the nuts and washers on in order to, like, on either side of the boards, and then spin them all the way down the 6-foot rod as you're pushing the thread through the shelves. So
that's nuts.
I have it mocked up without the picture I have it mocked up without the nuts and washers. But yeah, I think just when I get to the point of assembling that for the last time, I'm guessing it's going to take me an hour just to spin all the nuts and washers, like through that 6 feet of all thread.
Have you seen that thing that Izzy Swan invented? It's basically, it goes on to a nut, and you put your drill on one end, and it's got some sort of gear in between. So it doesn't matter. You don't need, like, obviously there's no socket out there that's deep enough for that, but it's open-ended. And yeah, so it would go over the nut. You just, throw your impact driver on there and zip it down. Dude, I think you should totally figure out how to get one of those, because I think that would save you, seriously, would probably save you an incredible amount of time and just frustration.
Well, and so,
yeah, the DPT wrench is what it's called. Scott
I'll have to check that out. I got to get this thing built soon, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I ordered the rod, right? And I ordered 4 6-inch sections. They ordered 4 12-foot sections. I only paid for 2 of them, but I had to throw them in my truck and cut them down as I'm spinning the nut on. And I thought, so if you ever work with all thread and you cut it, make sure that you grind smooth the edges. I thought I did, but there was a spot where I didn't. So I was spinning a nut on, and it just opened up my finger. It was so sharp that I didn't even feel it. I just, that feeling when your skin opens?
Yeah, when it's wet.
Yeah, and you can just like feel like the two different like pieces like moving back and forth. Yeah, so that was bad. But the industrial shelf, working on that. And also, if you guys watch my Instagram, I'm not done with the video yet. It's going to be one video, but we're filming it over 2 weekends. There's a guy that runs Iron Dog Knife Works, Harley Seidel. He's down in Bradenton, which is about an hour and 20 minutes from me. So last Saturday, I drove down there, and I wanted to make like a mini cleaver because I want to do a few knives, and so we drew that out and started work on that. We got it to the tempering process. I think we started about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and there's a lot to it. I mean, but it's nice to actually see it, because I mean, when you hear about knife making, it's easy to get mixed up. Excuse me. It's easy to get mixed up. You know, you have annealing, you have quenching, you have tempering, you have normalizing, you have all of these terms that if you haven't done it, it's like they all sound similar and you don't know which order to do things in, and it's really confusing. So it's been really good for me to actually have firsthand knowledge, because no matter how much you read about stuff, I feel like you have to read it, do it, and then read it again, you know, to have it all fall into place. But we got the knife, the tempering part of the deal, and we're tempering at 2 cycles at I think 450 degrees for 2 hours. So that was when I took off, because I didn't want to sit around for 4 hours. So this weekend we're going to go back and finish that, grind the edge on it, and put a handle on it. And,
what are you doing for the scales? Are you doing anything cool?
I don't know. So I think, again, I have a picture on my Instagram of the knife, and it looks bigger in the picture. It's actually like about, I don't know, maybe 5 inches long. You can fit 3 fingers on the handle about.
Okay.
But I like that rough scale that's on the spine of it. I want to leave that. I don't want to make it all shiny. I kind of want it to look like it was unearthed from a castle or something. But,
yeah, I don't like a high polished knife. I much prefer like a bead blasted or brushed look personally.
Yeah, and especially with carbon steel, because I mean, eventually, unless you spend more time caring for it than using it, it's gonna tarnish eventually. So
yes.
I don't really care. It's a knife. It's supposed to be used, not looked at.
Yep.
But so I'm thinking, because I want to have something that plays off of that kind of patina look. So I'm just thinking like a nice walnut handle. And he's got some really cool like epoxy wood hybrid, inlaid stuff that's really, really cool. But I just feel like it'd be out of place on there. So I just want something that's refined and classic. So I'm thinking walnut on that. But yeah, that's what I've been working on this week. And
see if you can get some like stabilized like walnut, like maybe a burl or something. That'd be super cool. That way it doesn't move on you.
Yeah.
Be pretty cool. Nice. Well, James, how about you, man? What you been working on?
Oh, a ton. I'm finishing up my plane till, so hopefully I'll have that very soon behind me. So I'll have my saw till and plane till on the back wall, and that is actually I was intending on that being a very complicated build and a lot of intricacies and measuring and figuring everything out. But after getting into it, it's a really simple build. Once you break it down, it's just a plank with dividers on it and a way to hold the planes on so they don't fall off the board. So yeah,
nice.
Looking forward. Hopefully that video will be out Saturday. And then I did a video that will be out actually in a couple hours, where I took my camera out into the woods and did tree identification. So I showed off a few of my favorite trees, but I also then went through, how do you actually go about identifying what is this tree? Looking at the branch, the bark, the leaves, the fruit, and taking a couple of them through the process and different apps and websites and things like that. So that was a fun time in the woods, and I think I'll do fairly well as a video. I've had a lot of people asking for that one.
Yeah,
but
I also saw your tackling your kitchen, man. That's it's gonna be quite the undertaking.
Yeah, I'm gonna be. I'm actually backing down videos on my channel a little bit. Rather than doing 3 a week, I'm gonna do 1, maybe 2 a week, so I can spend more time focusing on basically gutting my upstairs. I'm not gonna gut it. I'm gonna just take it to the drywall. But we're taking out all the flooring, all the cabinets, repainting everything, new trim throughout, crown molding, base molding, windows, doors, all new solid wood flooring, And so I'm going to be actually having several videos on that. That I'll be doing how to install a wood floor by hand. So no pneumatic tools, no chop saw for cutting things to length. I think that's going to be a painfully slow video for a lot of people.
Dude.
But I mean, honestly, if you think about
just to think about that is crazy.
Well, you know, it really wasn't that long ago that the pneumatic nailer came out, and before that, you know,
Oh yeah, it was all hand done.
I mean, you had stapled floors, but that was the cheap way of doing it, and you're kind of looked down on if you stapled the floor in.
People walk into your house and scoff at you.
So it was only like 25 years ago that good wood floors were all nailed in.
Yeah,
with a hammer.
Yeah,
so I'll be doing that. I'm not going to make the kitchen cabinets. I'm not going to make the kitchen cabinets. We just bought them, but I got them unfinished, so I'll be doing the finish work on them. But the really interesting video, the one I just decided on yesterday, is going to be, I bought a sheet of Corian, you know, the solid thickness countertop. So rather than buying the countertop, I'm going to buy a sheet. So it comes a 1/2 inch thick, 30 inches by 145 inches long.
Jeez.
And so I'm going to take that sheet and with all hand tools, break it down and put it together into a full thickness countertop.
Nice.
That's not supposed to be machined fairly well, right? It just wreaks havoc on your blades.
It will dull the blades fairly quickly. Not as quick as like aluminum or brass.
Yeah.
But fairly well, probably about as quick as aluminum would dull it.
What's a sheet like that? I mean, what can you buy it in like 4x8s?
Not normally, because it's designed for counters, so it's long and narrow.
Okay. I mean, is there like a general price per foot ballpark that you?
It's usually about, well, when you buy it from the store, you're going to be spending $30 to $40 a square foot.
Wow.
Online, you can get it for as low as like $12 to $18 a square foot.
I'm really interested to see that process, because it's definitely something I've been wanting to work with more here recently. I think it can add a really cool texture to a lot of pieces. I think it would be a really nice, like, in tabletop, or, you know,
especially with power tools, it is so fast, and it's really easy to work with.
I feel like like white Corian and walnut is like instant.
I mean, Binueta has done some really cool stuff with, like, using his little carvey to make serving dishes and egg trays and really interesting designs. I actually think it applies to like CNC work really readily. So yeah, I've definitely been thinking about that. I think it'd be very, very cool.
Well, especially for little things like that, if you go to like the cabinet shops or places that install it, you'll get all these cutouts, like the sink cutout and things like that will get thrown away. So you can pick those up for almost nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're going to buy a full sheet, it's pricey.
Yeah.
But I mean, the options are endless. I mean, you can get stuff that looks almost identical to granite, almost identical to quartz, solid colors, wispy colors, lines and streaks, and anything you want, you can get it in that.
Yeah, that's cool. Nice. Well, anything else, or is that everything for you?
Well, I'm also I did a little work on the spring pole lathe. I'm hoping to have a video on that next week. But yeah, I'm looking forward to having a lathe that I can just flat pack and take with me wherever I want.
Dude, I have actually been thinking about doing something like that, because when Irma came through this area, it didn't really come through here, but we got a lot of the wind from just the outside of it. And so like the trail that my wife and I usually go over and like do some trail running on had a ton of trees come down, and dude, it's like cherry and walnut and maple, and like the logs are just sitting there off to the side of the trail. And I'm like, man, I could bring my electric chainsaw and a spring pole lathe and my camera and like turn something out on this freaking, it's the AT. Awesome. I mean, it's part of the AT. Yeah. I just think, like, talk about an amazing setting for that. Like, that would be gorgeous. So
I actually
definitely thought about it.
I did a video like that, last year, I think it was.
Yeah,
no, it was earlier this spring where I made a bench in the woods and just
I remember that.
That was kind of it's kind of fun to do bushcraft building, and
it would be very cool. I think I'm gonna watch your spring pole lathe progress, and I might get around to doing that. That would be pretty fun, actually. So I thought about bringing like my little like rocker lathe and like the DeWalt battery thing, but I'm like that would be a pain in the butt. That thing's like 80 pounds, so I don't know if I actually really want to do that. But yeah,
maybe I'll have to bring it out when I'm out at your place next time.
Seriously, I mean, it's actually would be kind of cool, man, because there's, as I said, the hardwoods in this region are just awesome. And so there's at least cherry and maple, and I think I saw some walnut, but all the logs are in pretty manageable sizes because it was basically where it was blocking the trail. So it's like, 3 or 4 feet long. And so you could just chop it up or, bring your fro or whatever and make it happen. So yeah, I might have to do that. Get the seriously epic slider shots, man. Like,
oh yeah,
half speed. In the background and... Oh, geez, that would look super sexy.
And green woodworking is just it's a joy to watch. It's a joy to do. Yep. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, did you see Matt Cremona's most recent? He just did a shop update with it, but he did a green woodworking in the UK.
England. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of cool because it's a shop there. It's outdoors, all unpowered tools, and you're handed a log at the beginning of the class, and you walk away with a chair.
Yep. I would love to do that. That John C. Campbell school that I went to last year, they do a Windsor chair class like that where it's all green. You using the shave horses and splitting it out of just the logs, and it's like a 10-day class though, because it's just the spindles on the freaking Windsor chair take like a day or two. So it's I would love to do that. That's like a bucket list project for me because it's so opposite of what I do. I think it would be really, really cool. So nice. Well, I have been working on this dining table and benches that I've been building and got it glued up last night, or at least got the legs glued onto it, and really kind of digging the way it's looking. Literally have used every board of that walnut pile except for one. So you guys were here last year. You probably remember what that pile looked like, and it is all gone. So it has been quite a project as far as, I think it's over 100 board feet of walnut. So it was a lot. So I'm pretty excited the way it's coming along. Hopefully, I really need to get that thing finished up. I've got a bunch of guys coming in this weekend for a weekend-long bachelor party. One of my best friends who lives up in New York is getting married, and so there are 9 guys coming to my house starting this afternoon through Monday. And we're going to be having a bachelor weekend in Asheville, hitting up breweries and doing some outdoorsy stuff. So it should be a lot of fun, but it's going to be a crazy weekend, and I'm going to get no work done. So I got to get this thing finished and put out sometime next week. So I will probably be a couple days late on the video, but happy to have it finished because it's just big. It's taking up a lot of space. It's like 60 inches long by 32 inches wide by like 44 inches tall, and that's just the table, not the benches. So it's gonna be quite the process just getting it all sanded and finished, but I'm excited to see what it's gonna look like once it's done. So that's most of what I've been working on this week. I was also on the Make or Break podcast last week, which is a brand new podcast. Brandon Cullum over there is starting it up, and I think I was actually the first episode, but it's a cool format. It's like an interview show, and basically he's going to be interviewing, I guess, other makers and people like that, and kind of went pretty deep into my origin story, and it was good. It was a lot of stuff I really haven't talked about elsewhere.
Of the Brooke squat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The word. Actually, we didn't even talk about that. That would have been kind of funny. But yeah, just kind of what if I was into this stuff growing up, and what I did before this, and just things I haven't gotten into a lot elsewhere. So it was a good show, and he's doing a really good job with the, I guess, like graphics and stuff. Like he creates a really nice thumbnail, and he's doing the podcast both on YouTube and on like iTunes, but the YouTube one, he like edited and made it look really pretty slick. So good work for sure. Definitely go check that out. We'll have a link in the show notes. It's also linked to in my Instagram bio, like at this very moment. So if you're listening on Thursday, October 5th, then you can go over there and check that out. But yeah, so that was a good one. So I think that's about it for me, though. Pretty just focusing on those tables. So let's go ahead and move into, I guess, our Q&A. So thank you, everybody in the live chat. You guys have given us a bunch of good questions to talk about. So yeah, let's get into it. So first question from Keith Johnson, awesome woodworker. Keith, definitely go check him out on Instagram and YouTube if you don't already. His question is, what's our approach for gluing up long miters, similar to what you would have done on a waterfall table? Dominoes. That's an easy one for me. I don't know about you guys, but I think the domino makes long miters like that pretty simple and very, very strong. You know, I think splines, obviously, I think would be the other choice. What about you guys?
Yeah, dominoes or a dowel. When you're talking about in-grain miter joint, I like doing splines, but that's a personal thing, and they tend to work better with hand tools. But
yeah,
than a domino. Dominoes don't work very well with hand tools.
No, it wouldn't work so well without power.
I should do that. That sounds like a great video, though. Hand tool dominoes. Buy the dominoes and cut out the joinery.
That would be tricky.
I got to try that now. Thanks for that.
I don't think I've ever done a long miter joint like with wood.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely tricky. Even with the domino, it didn't come out perfect. You know, because really it's all dependent on how perfect the miter itself is, you know? Yeah. So you really got to dial in your angles or else it's still going to be gappy. Yeah.
Got to make sure that the angle on the domino matches the angle on
exactly. So if the domino is set to 45, which, you know, it's got like D10s at 45, 22.5 and 90, you know, if it's set wrong, then it's not going to work. So yeah, I actually think splines might be slightly more forgiving in that way. I think, you know, glue it up with some, you know, CA glued blocks on either side of the miter, so that way you can get good clamping pressure, and then it doesn't really matter if it's exactly 45 unless you're doing like a full like frame or something, but it doesn't sound like that's what he's doing. And then you could add splines, you know, going I guess across the miter. So
Be cool if there was like a tool out there that would do that whole process, like miter and spline in one pass. Both sides.
Yeah. That would be nice.
That way you can make one waterfall table and then.
Well, actually, there are router bits to do that. Actually, now that I think about it, they create like basically they're called block miters or splined miters. But yeah, I mean, you know, that would probably only work on like 3/4 inch material because those bits aren't that wide. But yeah.
Well, the other thing you can do is turn the spline 90 degrees and go with the grain. Just like you would for splining the box corner.
Yeah, that's true.
But another option that I've seen done is to get a dowel of a different type and glue together your miter with nothing in it, just glue together roughly, and then drill out through the joint, and then put a through dowel of a different wood, so you get that. So when it comes out the other end, it's like an oval shape on it.
Yeah.
So it's a decorative piece, but that way you're not having to match the angles, whatever you glued it up at, then you just drill it through and you don't have to worry about that.
That's what Sean just did, right? On his table, Sean Stone, on the Osage Orange thing he's working on.
I haven't seen that video. It's in my list yet.
Oh, no, it was just a picture he put on the Maker Mastermind.
Oh, no, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it looked like that's what he did, like a through dowel kind of through the waterfall. So that definitely would work, especially if you've got a nice thick slab or something you're doing it with. So cool. I think that probably effectively answers that one. So the Duck, who's a regular live chat listener, so thank you for that, asks, he wants to make a French cleat wall, only he needs to hang it from basically the joists in his basement. So that's a little tricky because I think the biggest thing with French cleats is you need enough room above them to be able to hook the cleat over. So I don't know. What do you guys think about this?
Well, that's kind of what I've done on mine. I put 2x4s that are on the joist, but then the 2x4 runs all the way to the ground, so the joist is keeping it from falling over.
Okay.
I guess if you're thinking about like you only want it to come like halfway to the ground, and just hang from the joist, you could put like nail 2x4s onto the joist vertically, and then hang your French cleats on that. You just have to make sure that, number one, your joist can take the weight of what you're putting on it. Number two, the connection method between the joist and the 2x4 can take the weight of what you're putting on it. And that weight can add up very, very quickly on a tool wall. You could very easily end up with like a 300 or 400 pound wall.
Yep.
I don't know if I really want that hanging from a connection that would have a shear strength.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think
French cleat your French cleat.
Yeah,
but then you're still talking about that French cleat connection.
Yeah,
and it would be doubling the connection, so you'd have twice as many points of failure.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
but it would make a removable French cleat wall.
Yeah, French cleat house. The whole thing just drops together.
You have a movable wall and a French cleat on every joist, so you can move your wall to wherever you're working in the shop.
Yeah, it sounds like to me from a joist above your ceiling, or above your shop space. I don't know if the French cleat would be my first choice. I think to me, like adding some sort of, like you're saying, James, framing to kind of support that kind of thing, so it's contacting the ground. I think probably makes more sense, because I think a lot of the strength that the French cleat gets is being able to kind of rest against the wall and not be
you're transferring your energy straight down to the foundation.
Yeah So if that wanted to continue to travel backwards and put more stress against that cleat, that would be questionable maybe. So cool. Next question from Sean Foushee. I think is how we pronounce that. I think we figured that out last time. Isn't that right? Sean Foushee, I think.
Sure.
Hopefully. So if we needed to glue up tabletops but didn't have a domino, would we go with biscuits, dowels, or just use cauls? And he's saying 5 to 6 tabletops minimum. So I guess it's a big table build. I would probably use biscuits, personally. I think they're a lot faster than dowels. What about you guys?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was kind of like reluctant to use biscuits or a plank joiner, and if I'm doing one table or something that doesn't have a ton of stuff on it, I'll probably do a spline joint, just because it's an excuse for me to use my plow plane, and it's fun and it's cool, and you can create the little I like having like a little accented spline piece to glue up the wood. I think it looks neat. But if I'm doing multiple stuff, or even just a big table that has a lot of joints in it, the plate joiner is the way to go. It's super fast. And it's something that I bought to do one project with a lot of glue ups, and I used it and I'm like, wow, why did I not buy this earlier? It's really, really easy to use, and just the amount of time that you save having some sort of alignment, whether it's biscuits or dowels or a spline, like just the amount of time that you'll save in sanding and leveling the top when you're done is totally worth it. I mean,
I don't understand why people don't do it. It's like it maybe adds 10 minutes to the front side of the project, but saves you easily that time on the backside, and you have a consistent tabletop thickness. And if any of the boards are a little bit, bowed at all or whatever, it kind of just makes everything even out.
I would go the other way. I don't put anything in my joint, but that's because I don't plane anything. I glue together rough boards.
Yeah, and then
plane it all down to thickness.
Yeah, and that certainly works.
The hand tool is, can you run it through a planer?
Exactly, or the drum sander. And for me, I got my drum sander with the biggest thing I wanted to do with it was be able to sand tabletops. And unfortunately, tabletops are usually so big and awkward that the infeed and outfeed support is just not there. So it'll end up, basically giving me drum sander snipe, and makes it worse than, just trying to kind of deal with it ahead of time. So I, like on this table I'm working on right now, I basically glued them up in sections that were, less than 8 inches wide, and then flattened those on the jointer, and then flattened the other face on the planer, and then added dominoes. And like literally, I think it's going to take me like 10 minutes to sand the tabletop. They are so perfectly even. And it would be the same thing with the biscuit. For alignment purposes, biscuits and dominoes are fairly interchangeable. The only thing that biscuits don't do well is kind of side to side alignment. So if you're trying to really dial in, the ends of a tabletop, biscuits are going to definitely be inferior because they allow a little bit of kind of side to side play, not up and down play. So, but if you're going to be trimming them flush anyway afterwards with like a circular saw or track saw, that doesn't really matter. So
yeah, I always give myself a few extra inches and just cut it down afterwards.
Yeah. With this thing I'm working on, basically the 4 corners are notched out to accept the legs, so they needed to be very exact in their kind of alignment. So that was my reasoning for using the domino. And so cool. Let's see. From Doc Darkness, if we could choose one material to work with, what would it be and why? This should be interesting. I think I know the answer for both of you, but we'll see. Why don't we guess for each other? That would be kind of fun.
I like that.
Yeah. For
like
James,
how specific? Do you mean just like wood, or like the type of wood?
Exact wood type or metal type.
I think
for
we
James,
both know exactly what James is.
Well, duh. James is easy as crap. White oak. I mean,
White oak,
yeah, that's all he ever uses. So, yeah. Zack, I don't know. Zack, it would. Obviously, I think. Well, I don't think so though. I think ash is more of a logistical, practicality choice rather than like his passion for that type of wood. I think it's readily available. It's less expensive, but I would think something like a walnut or something like that, but then that's excluding steel. So I don't know. I would almost say steel for Zack, but then it would be like what kind of steel, and that just becomes a whole nother, probably like 1/4 inch flat sheet, because then he could literally do anything with it. But I don't know.
Well, see that I think that the question is like, what would your dream material be to work with? Not seeing it as a positive thing, not as a negative thing. Like,
sure,
I'm stuck working with this one thing all the time. So
yeah,
I'd say obviously James is white oak.
Yeah,
I would think yours would be walnut.
Probably.
I would say steel. I mean, I don't think I need to get specific on that, but
yeah,
you can. I enjoy. It's funny. It's weird. It's like I change. Sometimes I really enjoy doing wood stuff, and sometimes I really enjoy doing metal work. It's just like whatever I haven't been doing lately is usually what I dream of doing. But
yeah,
I've been doing so much metal work lately, and I just feel like I'm in the groove with it, and like I feel like I know how to manipulate it the way I want, and I kind of have a workflow set for it right now. So I'd say that's probably my thing. But that's not to say I don't enjoy working with wood, because I certainly do. And I feel like the two complement each other very well. So I would hate to exclude one.
Yeah. I agree.
I would say Johnny's favorite would probably be a walnut veneered pure bond plywood.
That's actually probably, well, I don't know. Walnut hardwood is nice too, but honestly, I love me some walnut ply, man, because it makes life very easy. You can build some really cool looking stuff. But yeah, that's pretty good. Walnut anything, man. I'm just a sucker for walnut. Walnut, even veneered particle board. Nice. Cool. Let's see what we got next. So the fantastic Mr. Fox asks, with Christmas coming up, what kind of gifts are you guys going to make? So
that's an easy one for me, because that's why I'm building a lathe.
Yeah, exactly.
Lathe makes gift giving so easy. It's like, oh, I'm going to a Christmas party. I need to make a present quickly. 5 minutes later, here's a pin.
Yep. Except you're very dirty when you show up to the Christmas party covered in shavings. But
I mean, you can make it, you can finish it and everything right on the lathe, and have it handleable when you're done.
Yep. No, definitely. I mean, for me, it's probably going to be cutting boards just because I'm always looking for stuff where I can turn scraps into something useful.
Yeah.
And I think cutting boards are the best thing for doing that because literally it doesn't matter if it's an eighth of an inch thick. Like I've got some Babinga cutoffs from those shelves I made and, some quarters on white oak. Not that that's a great cutting board choice, but, even serving trays or anything like that, I think make great gifts. I feel like most people could use a cutting board in their lives, and they are fairly time consuming. So that's one thing, but the material cost is, basically just glue. So, and I think they're very impressive to a lot of people. So I definitely like making cutting boards personally. Zach, what about you?
So yeah,
Key fobs?
I don't know. I haven't thought of it. Key fobs are great.
Yeah.
I still like making those things. It's crazy. Like I've made so many of them and they're still like, I feel like it's because it's one of those things that I can kind of semi-mindlessly do just because I've done so many of them. So
Yeah.
I could just get out there, turn on the music, and there's no stress. I'm not using that creative problem solving part of my brain. I'm just kind of out there going through the motions, and it just kind of feels good to do. Those are always good. I've really been jumping into it's one of the things that's going to come up later, but in the what have you been reading and stuff, it kind of parallels what I've been doing, but a lot of leather work and stuff lately. I'm doing some tooling and so hopefully I'll be doing some little leather items and stuff that I'll have in my store soon if all goes according to plan.
Nice. Cool. Let's see what we got next here. Patrick's Workshop asks, question for full-time content creators. How do you guys manage your time with building, editing, social media, and family and friends? So I'm just going to throw this back to some previous episodes because we've definitely covered this in the past. I think it's, certainly something that can be hard to balance and takes time to figure out. But yeah, we've done a couple episodes on both of those things. We did a great episode with Mark Spagnuolo about kind of work-life balance. And then I think we did one a couple of weeks ago about just kind of what our schedules look like and how we kind of balance that and that kind of thing. So would definitely recommend checking those out.
One thing I'd say on the topic is don't make the assumption that we do balance them.
Yes. Yes.
The only way to learn that is to do, and you mess up, and
yes,
problems where schedules don't work out.
And I think we all work a lot harder than we probably did at day jobs. I mean, I know I did. I do. I have a lot less downtime now. Every moment I'm sitting like watching TV or something, I'm thinking, okay, I could be on my phone responding to comments or posting or whatever, and being productive. So I find it a lot harder to disconnect now. Because it's such a constantly on kind of job, you're whether it's social media or YouTube comments or, responding to emails or whatever, it's kind of never ending. So being able to turn it off is one of the biggest skills.
I was like that at first, like just always just nonstop. Like I felt guilty doing anything that wasn't productive. And I feel like my body and my mind lets me know when it's done. Like sometimes I'll be out in the shop and it's like,
oh yeah,
it's maybe only 2 p.m. and I'm just like, you know what? Like I've had enough. I need to go unwind. I need to go get my mind off of this. And it's not because I don't enjoy doing it, but I feel like I'm fortunate to pretty much have a threshold for balancing things. Like I'm not, if it's unbalanced, you don't feel good, and it should be pretty obvious. If you're not happy doing what you're doing, or if you keep thinking about doing something else, it's probably time to go do something else. And I think that's a big ingredient to keeping it fun and keeping it something that you love, and not making it a job.
Yep. And you're not going to do good work. That's the other thing. No. It's like if you're mentally spent, this is such a mentally challenging thing that we do, whether that's just fractions or, what I mean? Like there's just so many things that you have to think through while you're working, and especially if you're rushing or whatever. I mean, it's so easy to make an error that's going to screw up something you've been working on for hours and hours. So it's always better to take a break.
I think a good sign is if your mind is in another place he probably should go
Yeah.
do that other thing. I mean,
Yep.
and you don't use that as an excuse to be like, oh, I want to go eat ice cream and watch TV. But if you're, I mean, you should know what there's a difference. I learned a long time ago. It was just something that somebody said, and it really stuck with me. And I try and keep it in mind whenever I make a decision. There's a difference between wanting and feeling. Like, and it's kind of backwards from what you'd think. For instance, everybody wants to be in good shape. Most people don't feel like going to the gym. They don't feel like going for a run. They don't feel like, so try and figure out before you make a decision whether you want to do it or whether you feel like doing it. And like I said, it seems backwards, but if you want something for yourself, that's probably the means you should go by versus what you feel like doing. Because I never feel like doing anything. I feel like drinking as much coffee as humanly possible and not leaving the couch. Like, but that's not what I want for myself. So like same thing when it comes to work and balance is, what's good in the long run and what you want for your life versus what you feel like doing at the moment.
Yeah. And I think if you're doing the thing in your life that you probably should be doing, those two things get a lot closer to each other. You know what I mean? I think at previous jobs, it's like, oh, I should be doing this, but I really do not have any interest or desire to do this, and have a very hard time getting motivated to do it. Whereas now, some of the only times I feel that way is if I've there's always a point in a project where I'm getting mentally intimidated by something and I procrastinate, and then finally, get around to doing it, and it is fine. But that's probably the biggest thing for me is it's that one step in the build that is going to be tricky. And I usually am one to be like, oh, well, I need to edit video or respond to emails or whatever, and I'll do anything. It's still productive stuff, but I'm doing stuff to avoid doing that. Like for this build, this table build, it was cutting all the joinery for the legs and getting it glued up because I knew it was going to be a pretty weird process, and it had to be very precise. So but then finally got it done yesterday. It was no big deal, went really quick, and now I've got a table. So
I had the same thing on that shelf that I'm working on, because it's 6 feet tall with the 4 1-inch diameter rods, and there's 6 or 7 shelves, and I had to drill all of those things. I mean, when you're dealing with something that long, and I don't have a proper machining setup, I have a rickety drill press and so, and welding, and so everything could be out just a 1/16 of an inch or a 1/8 of an inch and throw everything out of whack. And so I was really dreading drilling those holes, but I couldn't figure out how I was going to do it until I went out there in the shop without a plan and just, started holding things and moving things around until it made sense, and it was successful. So just getting going, taking that first step, I think is critical. That
definitely. Cool. Well, we've got a couple more questions, but I think let's save those for the after party. So we've got some good juice for that this week. If you guys want to be able to hear that, that's for our Patreon supporters. So you can check us out, patreon.com/craftedpodcast. Definitely looking to up our Patreon support over the next coming months so we can maybe add some more content for you guys. So definitely go check that out. Let's see. Let's go ahead. I think we have a joke of the week, but I need to go find it. Let's go ahead and start with what we've been watching or reading or whatever, and we can come back to the joke. So I'm going to go first, actually. So this channel, actually, David Picciuto recommended it this week on making it, and then Bob had recommended a while back on making it. It's Learn Quick with Mike Boyd. It is an awesome channel. I don't know why I have not subscribed to it previously, but basically this guy tries to learn new things, and he times exactly how long it takes him to learn them. So I think his most popular video is learning how to kickflip, and it took him 5 hours and 47 minutes. And so basically the videos just show him trying to do this crap over and over and over again. And it's really inspiring how persistent and just dedicated he is to these things. And then when he finally nails it, like not only is his reaction awesome, but you just feel this awesome sense of accomplishment, even though you're just watching the video. So he's got him on, as I said, kickflip, learning to wheelie, learning to spin a basketball, stacking dice. I mean, he's got a ton of different, kind of all over the board skills that, normal people wouldn't really be able to do regularly. So it's a great channel. Definitely go check him out. So Mike Boyd, we'll have a link in the show notes. James, what about you?
Gecko, whatever. I'm sure most of you watch him.
Yep.
But he's
Jocko.
What did I say?
Gecko or something like that. Geico or something. I don't know what you said.
Geico, whatever. That's
Jocko.
He's been doing like the last 6 months or so. He's been putting out videos of absolutely crazy stuff that have just, when you let your mind wander and you wonder, I wonder what would happen if you did this. That's what the videos are like. And he just put out one putting razor blades on a yo-yo. It's that good.
yeah. He's been coming out with some crazy. He's gone like way different with his channel direction, but I've really been kind of enjoying it. He's got that super slow-mo camera, and his editing skills are just ridiculous. And
the fidget spinner with razor blades was awesome.
The
supersonic Nerf gun.
Firing
darts through Coke cans and.
Did you see the giant blender thing he made with like an electric lawnmower? That was he's totally taken his channel in a different direction, but I love it because I feel like his shop is set up to where he could literally make anything he ever wanted. And I don't know what he does I don't know that he does this full time. I really don't know, but whatever he does for his life, he has like the coolest shop, I think, on YouTube. Maybe it is really.
It's like
nice.
One step down from MythBusters.
Pretty much. It's it's very very similar to an Adam Savage.
Have you guys ever hung out with him before?
Yeah.
He's hilarious. Like he's super quiet, but everything he says is just profoundly hilarious.
And it's so much better with the accent too. It just kind of
But it's always like, it's funny because he doesn't tell jokes for anybody but himself. Like when he talks, it's because he thinks it's funny, and it's just profoundly hilarious. Like everything he says is just ridiculous. He's a very interesting, especially like him and I've hung out with him and Laura Kampf a few times, and those two together are just ridiculous.
He's a nut. He's just got that really silly kind of sense of humor where he just does weirdly random things, and they're hilarious. Like there's that. What was it, Bill Lavolsi video that he's like just in the background making some ridiculous face. I don't know, just stuff like that. When
we were up at Jimmy's place, it's funny. We're all just sitting around the campfire, and Jimmy has like chickens that are just constantly, making chicken noises, and all of a sudden, like Jocko just gets up calmly and starts like running around chasing him while running like a chicken and making noises. Just it's ridiculous. Anyway.
That's funny. What you got this week, Zach?
So I have been I've been reading some books. So I've been reading Creativity Inc., which is kind of about the story of Pixar and just the creating a creative environment. About halfway through it, and it's more about Pixar than a creative environment. So it's not really what I expected, but it's still really interesting. Like the story, I had no idea like how much stuff Pixar created. They're actually a computer company that was like under Steve Jobs, and it's a really interesting story. So I've been reading that, and also reading Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, as well as some old, like there's this old cowboy named Al Stolman who created all of these like kind of like the gospel of leatherworking stuff. So I've been thumbing through his stuff lately, trying to learn as much as possible. That's it for me.
Cool. Well, I guess let's close it out with favorite tools of the week. Zach, you got one?
So I finally unboxed the DeWalt Portaband a little bandsaw that I've had sitting in my shop for like 2 or 3 months, and it's incredible.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that is one of the more useful tools, I think, because you can make a cut, it makes like no sparks, no mess, and it's totally portable. So you can bring it to the work.
And it's for most of the stuff, it's way faster and cleaner than a grinder with a cutoff wheel. So
and quieter. It's like it is an awesome tool. I wish they made a stand for that. I know like Jimmy and a lot of people have made like their own versions. As far as I know, they don't really make a stand.
Yeah,
but
I'm gonna build one too because I'm gonna need it for knife making. I mean,
they're incredibly useful for cutting things to length like that. It's that's a great tool. So mine this week is parallel bar clamps. I have used my parallel bar clamps to death this week, man. It has been no joke. I think I've used every one of them like on 7 different glue ups probably. So it's been nuts. I use the Bessie ones. The Jet ones are great too. I really regret not keeping them clean from day one because now they've got tons of glue in the little grooves, and so they're can be kind of a pain, but I need to figure out an effective way to clean them off because they are just caked with glue. But they are, to me, the absolute best clamps out there. They have so much clamping power and keep things flat. Like when I was gluing up these strips into kind of the butcher block top looking things for the table and the benches, I could just start to glue them up, start to clamp them, and then just pound them with a mallet. And I knew it was referencing against the metal bar of the clamp, and it would end up pretty much perfectly flat. I mean, obviously I'd still flatten it, but those things are awesome. So definitely highly recommend those. James, how about you?
The Stanley number 55. I think I've mentioned this one before as my favorite tool of the week because it is one of my favorite tools. But
is it the King of Planes? Is that one?
Yep, it's the king of hand planes. It was designed to replace 55 planes in your shop. It won't do like smoothing and surface planing like you think of a normal plane, but all of the molding planes and grooving and tonguing, and it's a lot of fun. I'm using it this week on the plane. Yes, I'm using it on the plane till because I have to cut a bunch of 1/4-inch grooves an 1/8 inch deep. And keep them parallel to the outside, so I can cut all these grooves at different distances in with the fence, and it is a very enjoyable plane to work with.
Nice.
You know what would be kind of cool is like if you did a series of like woodworking through the ages, like you start out doing all your hand tool stuff, and then you enter like the 1800s or 1900s and incorporate some of the machinery, and then like the 50s and get yourself a shopsmith and go to town for a few videos, and all the way up through modern day. Be kind of interesting.
That would be cool. Yeah, it's kind of crazy how things haven't changed in like the past 50 years. I mean, most of our mainstay tools are pretty similar to what they were.
Refined.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of, or sometimes even crappier. You know, it's a lot of them. That was an interesting Making It episode. They were kind of trying to predict like the tools of the future, and they kind of made the observation that modern day woodworking tools are mostly like plasticky, lighter weight versions of the ones in the past. And that's pretty true. I mean, to me, the coolest, I think, advances have been in battery power. I'm just always amazed at how far battery technology has come. So
I was reading a book that was written like in the late 90s, and like it was like a construction or woodworking book or something. And he was like, don't even bother with battery powers. They're not, the battery powered tools aren't even going to last you long enough and this was like in the late 90s.
Oh yeah.
That wasn't that long ago. Like,
I remember as a kid, my dad had these like Makita, these like, bluish green Makita cordless drills, and it would last like
inside of the handle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it would last like 20 minutes.
That Makita circular saw with the huge handle with the battery that like slid in the handle.
Yep.
And it had like all the wire clamps that held the batteries in, and like the blade on that thing was like 3 inches.
Oh, tiny.
It's a slicer. And my stepdad was a carpenter. I remember when he got that, and he was like, this thing is going to change the world. And like, you couldn't even cut all the way across a sheet of plywood without changing the battery. And
now DeWalt has that crazy worm drive circular saw that uses FlexFold that can cut through 3 sheets of OSB simultaneously without even batting an eye. So yeah, it's it is truly amazing how far that technology has come. But yeah. Cool. One final thing. We got an email from Matt Whitlow this week about the Alone in the Wilderness, kind of documentary we were talking about last week, and it is available legally for free online in the Internet Archive. So we'll have a link to that in the show notes. Archive.org has that there. So if you're at all into making stuff, highly, highly, highly recommend checking that documentary out. It's a great watch, and good for the kids and family,
not just
whoever
making
else.
stuff. I just like the reason I suggested it last week is just like after all the drama of all the news and all the terrible things that have been happening, it's a really refreshing to watch a video of a guy by himself in the woods, like enjoying nature. It's just kind of a nice getaway.
Yes, it's just proof that you don't need to watch the news, because I don't.
Absolutely. Nope. Other than Tom Petty was a bummer this week.
Yeah, that is a bummer. Cool. Well, thank you to everybody for listening. Live chat people, stick around for the after party. And again, if you guys want to hear that, check us out on Patreon. And until next week, happy building.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
All right, let's move into the after party.
It's a party. I like a party.
I finally know. I paused. I waited. I've gotten it down now. Okay. So we've got a couple more questions. Thank you all live chat people for the great questions. You guys,
this has been a fantastic group on here.
I think we might do this every week, man. This is, this is one of our better shows in a while, I think.
It's actually really stressful to come up with.
Yes, a good
not
topic.
Stressful,
a topic that we can talk about for 15 to 20 minutes
every week. It really is. Because I mean, what episode is this?
49.
49.
Tomorrow is the 50th.
49. Like
next week.
50. We've done 50 building related topics. Like
we've talked for 50 hours, dude. We've talked for over 2 days straight. There are very few people in my life who I've talked to for 50 hours. It's kind of crazy. So
So trying to come up with like original things to talk about every week is kind of difficult. So if you guys ever have any suggestions on a show topic, please
shoot us an email.
You would be doing us a favor to send them to us.
Definitely. Cool. Let's see. We got a couple. So the duck, I think this is a really good one. Other than being makers in the shop, what other things do we like to make? So bake bread, cookies, take pictures, whatever. So, so me personally, I homebrew beer, and I also roast my own coffee, and I also cook. I'm the cook in our house. So my wife is a really good baker, but like every day I'm the one making our dinners and stuff like that. So, I really like, I think, anything kind of culinary like that. I think homebrewing your own beer and roasting your own coffee are both very, very rewarding when you can get them down. So, what about you guys?
We're talking things we like to make?
Or, I guess, yeah.
I do a lot of electronics, actually. I like to tear apart and rebuild computers and wiring sound systems and things like that.
Yeah.
That was fun. I just put a new video system in our vehicle, and that was fun.
It's like
nice.
James,
like kids.
It's a hobby. I like to work with powered woodworking tools when I'm not doing woodworking.
In my off time, I use power tools.
Yeah, you should see my living room.
I mean, my other hobby is running, so it's fairly time. It takes a lot of time to do that, but
nice. Zach, what about you?
My problem is it changes. Like I will fall into the rabbit hole of something for 3 months and then like dump so much time into it, and then I'll find something else and do that for a while. But kind of depends on the environment. Like before I lived in Florida, I absolutely loved mountain biking, and I miss that a lot, and I can't wait to move so I can get into that again. Where I'm at, there's not really a whole lot of anything to do. So mostly it's, most of the stuff I get into can somehow be connected to building stuff. Like I still, like I said, I don't feel like what I do is a job. It still feels like a hobby. So like right now I'm learning leather working and getting into that, which, still feels like a hobby to me. Reading books, usually trying to do something that benefits me in some way. That's at the moment, that's pretty much all I have down here in Florida. Learning new skills like knife making. That's something that I've been dabbling on or into a little bit. So, but it changes.
Nice. Cool. Got a couple more. One from Doc Darkness. What do we think about using hot glue to hold a piece when gluing panels during assembly? He saw Jimmy DeResta doing it recently. So it's not something I've personally done, but I think it works probably pretty well. I think CA glue might even be a better choice. I know hot glue, it almost starts to set up as soon as you put it down. So if you don't get it squeezed together really, really quickly, I think it could almost end up causing a gap. Whereas CA glue is going to take 30 seconds or whatever to bond, and then once it bonds, the wood glue can do the work. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I've used hot glue in panels for panel glue ups because it compresses. So I always put wood glue at the top and bottom at the center of the panel so that the panel will expand out from the center. But then I put hot glue on the sides so that the hot glue will compress. Whether or not the hot glue actually glues it in place, it's just like a rubber stopper so that as the panel expands, it compresses into the glue as opposed to shifting around.
Interesting. So you're talking like a framing panel kind of thing, or?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, that's a pretty good idea.
It's funny. I actually busted out the hot glue yesterday for that shelf. I had to make some templates that would go on little blocks that would go on each side, and I made a little offset spacer so that it would be a stop. And I just cut a little 1/4-inch strip, hot glued it on the corner so that when I push the block, it would stop up against the edge. I think it's good for quick stuff like that. It's not good. It's not actually for making jigs and like just reference things that you're only going to use a couple of times. It's quick and it's easy. Also in the past, I found it's really good for, I built something that I needed to hold all of these boards in place with a batten across it on the back. And then I needed to flip it over to put nails or screws in through the other side. So I hot glued the batten across the boards just to hold it in place while I flipped it over, because it's, not anything that's not structural. It's just kind of a quick third hand, I feel like, is a good application for it.
Yep. It's good for planer sleds and stuff like that. Things you want to be easily removable because it comes off of wood fairly well. So I used it when I made the concrete table. I used that to connect the form, which ended up working out really well. I was actually surprised how strong hot glue is. It's pretty dang. I had to beat the crap out of it to get the form apart. So
the other thing hot glue is great for is filling things. So like if you have a knot you want to fill with epoxy, but all the epoxy runs out the back, if you put hot glue in there, it'll kind of seep into the cracks a bit more than tape. So if you have something that you can't tape the other side, you can put some hot glue down into it first. And then that will seal up before it goes out the other side.
Yeah,
and then more epoxy on top of it.
Nice. Cool. Well, I think let's save the rest of them maybe for next week. I think this has been good. I think we're time to wrap it up. So thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, and thank you to all the live show listeners. And I guess until next week, happy building, guys.
See ya.